So, with Torchlight Infinite, we couldn't get enough of that ARPG Diablo-like vibe and feel, because it looked different, felt different, and played significantly different, despite a lot of similarities with the core games of the genre. But what if I told you that I found a game that looks like older ARPGs and plays like older ARPGs, and it's completely free? You'd probably tell me that there is definitely some caveat to that, and you'd be correct, because it's a full-scale pay-to-win monstrosity that makes combat irrelevant for progression after 5 hours of playing.
Are you not embarrassed?
Greetings ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alex B and this is the first time playing, a series where I try a completely new game in the MMO genre to share my first impressions playing it. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications as we keep on uploading more and more videos. Today we play Drakensang Online. For those of you who don't know, Drakensang originally was a series of video games developed by German companies using the unique rule sets of the Dark Eye. Also a niche German alternative to the Dungeons & Dragons RPGs. The first video games were not the most favorable among critics by that time, but since then they have found their audiences and are still being supported by the niche dedicated communities. Nonetheless, back in the late 2000s, the game series was generating enough revenue and hype around it for the German developer Bigpoint to release the Drakensang Online in 2011 to 2012 depending on the region, and as a complete stranger to MMOs back then, I missed it completely, which is a shame, as the Steam reviews keep telling that the game was more than fun and entertaining. People used to pour thousands of hours of their time playing it and enjoy the combat, loot grinding and build customization, but that apparently lasted till 2016, when Bigpoint was acquired by User Games, and User Games is famous for offering this. What could possibly go wrong? Download the Steam client, start, choose the server, and immediately we're being forwarded to the character creation screen. No logos, no promos, no stories, no other stuff. Instead, we're being offered to create 1 out of 4 character classes: Fighter, Mage, Ranger and Engineer. And I like that you have just 4 basic classes and not dozens of different ones, which in majority of cases are poorly balanced and only confuse the newcomers. However, what I don't like is that the game already pushes the premium packages of some sort. We ignore them as we are never premium and proceed with creation of Dragon Knight. The customization is simple, but it allows you to create Guy Fieri, and as everyone in the world wants to be Guy Fieri, I believe it is a viable choice for our class as well.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
The loading of the world is not the best looking, and initially that detail has made me think whether this game was going to be functioning badly. Turns out it is the only technical hiccup that I faced. The game takes time to load the cached textures in certain areas, which leaves space for some hilarious moments, but other than that, it works just fine. No stutters, no frame drops, nothing. A good working game that actually even looks not bad by the modern standards. The whole style of design is directly inspired by medieval might and magic settings, with dark forest and swamps infested by bandits and various sorts of monsters, while the peace zones range from smaller wooden villages to the grand stone castles. Nothing groundbreaking, especially if you played something like Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age or even Path of Exile. The whole vibe of Drakensang Online is supposed to give you the dark fantasy impression, but it eventually disappears once the game starts giving you free costumes. Yeah. I like the interface of the game, by the way. The skills are laid out in an even horizontal row that is easy to navigate and control. The quick slots with buttons for potions, local soul shots from L2, the mount and quick teleport buttons are neatly laid out to ensure the overall compactness of the combat activities. The same goes for the map, as the semi-transparent map in the corner of the screen is especially helpful while navigating the quest objects and NPCs. You can always maximize it or disable it completely with the M key, but the map widget here is non-intrusive and works actually greatly. I wish more games had such map placement. The quick commands also have almost all the required buttons except the tutorial button, which I could not find. Maybe it's just me. Let me know whether there is a tutorial button if I need to remind myself some info sometime in the game. With that being said, I strongly dislike the quest tracking and inventory menus. As with any other ARPG, Drakensang Online has a lot of quests that tell you to hunt a number of monsters or interact with various objects. The issue with the quests is that they lack variety, lack context, lack rewards, and lack proper tracking options. With games like World of Warcraft, you take many quests, you track them on the right hand side of the screen and the map shows all the quests and their locations simultaneously. Drakensang Online only shows one quest at a time, both on the screen and on the map. So, even if you appear on the map with, let's say, 3 quests, you won't know the location of the objects and the monsters of 2 of them. You can cycle through the quest log and track one at a time, which honestly does not help much. And when you complete the quest, you are given a modest reward in premium currency, some minor loot, and are being sent to the same area again to interact with new objects and hunt other monsters that you've hunted before, but the game never counted them, as you obviously couldn't have the required quest initially. So yeah, the questing in Drakensang is not the most inspiring. You may say, you can't complain about fetch quests in MMOs, they are the standard, and I'd say, correct. But what separates better MMOs and RPGs in general from their inferior counterparts is that the quests are either linked to the better stories with proper voice acting, generous and meaningful loot, and the combat mechanics that are just enjoyable to play through. The example of all 3 combined can be something like Witcher 3 in a single-player RPGs, while MMOs tend to suffer a bit in at least one aspect of this. And Drakensang seems to fail in story aspect of the quests and the loot aspect, while performing more than fine from the combat mechanic aspect. The story in the whole game and the quests in general all fall under the model there is some enemy, go hunt it because it's bad. And you do that. There is no voice acting, there is not even some minor voice line hints like in WoW, when even the minor quests have some basic voice lines. The text of the quest is also not interesting to read, especially when you are getting the same quest from the same NPC who pretends to give you a different task to do. And the rewards, as I've said, just some low tier item and some premium currency. The equipment is limited to specific tabs that can be expanded with premium currency and even have a dedicated additional premium tab if you've got a premium subscription. Certain looted items need to be identified before equipping, and I can't understand why. The weapons and armor seem to not be different from one class to another. On the second thought, I cannot recall that I had dropped any item from other classes, which makes me think that drops are directly linked to the player class. Then identifying the item seemed to have even less sense, except making players click right mouse button all the time. The items can have different slots suitable for inserting various gems that either empower the offensive or defensive stats and do that freely. The only downside to this is that you cannot recycle the socketed items and use them for further crafting. From what I've seen, the items in Drakensang Online are being given in 3 ways: quests and normal drops from monsters and bosses, crafting and drops from premium chests and event bosses. Crafting is simple and requires you to combine required items according to the needed recipe and get the item. For example, the game teaches how to repurpose the green level items to get one blue level one. I believe more recipes and blueprints for crafting armor, weapon and gems are being unlocked later in the game, as I couldn't find the recipes to be sellable even in cash shop. Doesn't mean that there is none there, I just couldn't find them and my searching skills are the same as Windows search engine. Gathering requires the use of multi-tools that are being given in quests and purchased with premium currency. Chests are being opened with lockpicks that are being given by minor portions in certain quests and bought with premium currency. And you might have guessed it, the drops from such chests are much more plentiful and more impactful on your combat abilities than the rest of the items. By the way, you don't have to even hunt the monsters to get access to chests, you just get the lockpicks and open them to gather the better loot than could have been received from standard quests, which basically makes the combat kinda pointless, aside from grinding experience and leveling. And that is a shame, to be honest, because I like the simplicity of hack and slash combat out there. It reminded me of Titan Quest and Sacred, one of the older Diablo clones that were popular during my teenage years. You start with simple swing of the sword and learn more complex skills along the way. What I like about the build creation is that you can simply maximize the first basic attack and slash through the enemies pretty easily, because the higher levels of the basic swing give you bonuses to movement and attack speed. So, the more you swing, the faster you become. The respecking is also rather simple. You just dump in-game coins and freely assign points to the skills you want once again. And I like that you can dump more points into the higher level skills while almost ignoring the earlier skills. There are also group skills supposedly for endgame raids and perks that are being unlocked in PvP activities, and the PvP is not the most popular feature here, at least at the beginning stages of the game. Matchmaking takes forever, and I was able to connect with just one player who was afraid to fight me for some reason, and when I decided to match for party PvP, I got another solo match and was obliterated completely. It seems that the game matches players by their level and not by their equipment. Oh well. But what is even funnier, I had more honor points rewarded for loss than the victory in PvP. Honor can be used to maximize PvP perks, including more damage to players. This suggests that you can simply keep on participating in PvP, even losing, and eventually maximize the honor perks. That may be one of the explanations why PvP is not that popular here. Monetization is not just a part of the game that is just there to have an option to support the developers and make players' lives a bit more comfortable. Monetization here is a feature. Drakensang Online has 2 separate premium subscriptions, has a cash shop to buy items and services for real money directly, and has a conversion service that lets you buy premium currency. Premium subscriptions are being generously offered for free by the game at the beginning, but then you have to buy them, and the reminders to buy them are rather intrusive. Premium coins are used to open chests, which means getting better loot and eventually get cooler items. For example, I was able to get a dragon mount from the premium chest, which makes me think that if I spend less time grinding or more time paying, I'd get something cool and powerful as well. And without the payments, the game becomes a lot less fun to play, as the drop from the enemies is dick, and your only hope is to grind quests to pile minor sums of premium currency to open another chest. That's basically it. A decent old game that was fun to play a decade ago has become its former shell, hiding a lot of pay-to-win mechanics. So, should you play Drakensang Online? Only if you like paying for a chance to get another in-game item, but if so, you probably play Genshin already, as it has better graphics, better story and characters, and, to be frank, a lot less predatory monetization. And for the sake of old school hack and slash, I'd rather play Titan Quest. And that's it for today. If you liked this video, please click a like, and if you're here for the first time, consider subscribing to the channel. Share your thoughts and impressions with Drakensang Online down in the comments below, and let me know what MMO or online game should I review in the first time playing series. As for now, I thank you all for watching once again. My name is Alex B, and I'll see you in the next one.